So money has changed a lot in value over the years. Let's have a think about how much things cost today compared to years ago and how much the value of things has changed over time. So this is a really good exercise for using memories from the past to think about how things currently are in the present. So let's start with a pint of milk. How much do you think that a pint of milk roughly costs today? Now it can vary a little bit between shops, but it's around about 55 pence for a pint of milk just now. So how much do you think that a pint of milk was back in 1980? That's 40 years ago now, when the Rubik's Cube first became a popular toy. Do you think that it was either A, 17 pence, B, 27 pence, or C, 37 pence? What do you think? Well, the answer was A. It was 17 pence for a pint of milk in 1980. Was that more or less than you thought it would be? The equivalent of 17 pence in today's money is 73 pence, so milk is relatively a little bit cheaper today for us than it was back in 1980. Now what about a loaf of bread? How much do you think a loaf of bread costs today in 2020? Well, again, it can vary quite a lot between shops, but you can still get a loaf of bread for roughly £1. How much do you think that a loaf of bread was back in 1975? That's 45 years ago now, when the Watergate scandal with President Nixon first broke in America. Do you think that it was either A, 49 pence, B, 69 pence, or C, 19 pence? How much do you think a loaf of bread was in Britain in 1975? Well, it was roughly 19 pence. What did you think? Now 19 pence then is the equivalent of about £2 today, so bread has remained a little bit cheaper today, comparatively speaking. Now number 3, the first class stamp. So stamps have gone up in price quite a lot over the last few years, perhaps because fewer people are using traditional mail just now. But at the moment, a first class stamp is 76 pence. How much do you think a first class stamp was in 1985? Now 1985 is the year the EastEnders was on the BBC for the first time. Do you think that it was A, 47 pence, B, 17 pence, or C, 7 pence? How much do you think that a first class stamp was in 1985? Well, the answer is B. It was 17 pence. That's the equivalent of 55 pence today. So stamps have become relatively more expensive over the years. How much did you think that they were? Now, let's think about the price of a litre of petrol. So just now, in 2020, a litre of petrol is roughly £1.16, although it is falling a bit at the moment. How much do you think it was 40 years ago in 1980? How much was a litre of petrol in 1980? Do you think that it was A, 48 pence, B, 28 pence, or C, 78 pence? What do you think? Well, it was B, 28 pence, which is the equivalent of 90 pence today. So actually there's not too much difference in the relative cost of petrol just now when you take inflation into account. Did you think it'd be more or less than this? Now, what about a pint of beer? I wonder if there's been much difference in the cost of a pint of beer over the years. Now today, in 2020, the price of an average pint is roughly £4, although it does vary a little bit around the country. So back in 1970, 50 years ago, when Edward Heath had just won the general election, how much do you think that a pint of beer cost then? How much was a pint of beer in 1970? Do you think that it was A, 20 pence, B, 60 pence, or C, £1? Well, all the possible answers are a lot cheaper than beer is today. What do you think? Well, the answer is A. A pint of beer was 20 pence in 1970, and the equivalent cost today is £3.32. So beer is relatively more expensive today than it was 50 years ago, by about £1. Right, cinema tickets. So today, in 2020, the average cost of a cinema ticket is £10. How much do you think people in Britain were paying for cinema tickets 30 years ago in 1990? That was the year of the poll tax demonstration in London and also the year when Margaret Thatcher resigned. In 1990, do you think that cinema tickets were A, £6.31, B, £4.50 or C, £2.81? What do you think? Well, the price of a cinema ticket in 1990 was C, £2.81. That's the equivalent today of £7.05. So cinema tickets are also slightly more expensive today when you take inflation into account. Let's look at some more expensive items now. What about the cost of a car, say a Mini today? Well, in 2020, the average price of a brand new Mini is £20,000. How much do you think one would have set you back in 1965? Now, this was the year of the state funeral for Winston Churchill. So in 1965, do you think that a Mini would have cost you A, £5,000, B, £450 or C, £7,000? What do you think? Well, the answer is B, £450. So a brand new Mini would have cost you £450 in 1965. Was that less than you thought it would be? That's the equivalent today of £9,205.97. So even taking inflation into account, Minis are almost double the relative value today. What do you think about that? Do you think they're worth it? And finally, the value of houses. So in 2020 in the UK, the current average house price is about £230,000. What do you think the price of an average house was 50 years ago, back in 1970? Now, this was the year that Paul McCartney announced that he was leaving the Beatles. Do you think that it was A, £4,975, B, £40,975 or C, £10,000? Well, the answer is A, £4,975. Is that what you thought? That's the equivalent today of £82,634.67. So again, houses are relatively much more expensive today than they were then. It seems that there isn't so much difference in the relative cost of smaller, more everyday items between now and years ago, with much larger differences in the values of the bigger items such as cars and houses. What do you think about that? I hope you enjoyed thinking about the changing prices and values of things over the years with me today.